Look at you be ready, Frickus.
Intended, frère.
Vous êtes tout seul. Centros.
Airport! Unter Feuerwehrlo!
Far from home, but rallied by their king, the English army forced a French surrender and put King Louis and his knights to flight. With the impromptu battle ending in resounding victory for the English, King Henry had secured his ancestral lands under the English crown. After England defeated the French at the Battle of Bremule, Normandy was back in King Henry's hands. But 1 year later, his good fortune turned to tragedy. In 1120, his son and heir William Adelin died in a shipwreck. The future of Henry I's kingdom was in jeopardy. Henry desperately needed a new heir. With no legitimate sons left alive, he broke with tradition and chose his daughter, Matilda. Henry forced his barons to swear an oath to accept Matilda as queen. But when the king died, they broke their promise. England would not be ruled by a woman. Matilda's cousin Stephen saw his chance and claimed the throne. The crisis moved to the capital. At Westminster Abbey, Stephen was crowned king, but Matilda wanted what was hers. She was also lining up powerful supporters who would fight Stephen for her right to rule. Their conflict engulfed England in civil war. Fighting raged throughout the land. In 1141, everything focused on one of the kingdom's most strategic cities, Lincoln. Matilda's allies had commandeered the castle. But King Stephen was determined to take it back. He besieged the castle. Stalemate. As dawn broke on February the 2nd, everything was about to change. Matilda's half-brother, Robert of Gloucester, raced to break the siege. As Robert's forces approached Lincoln, Stephen's army turned away from the castle to face them. Robert could win Matilda the crown, but only if his army could win the day. Robert of Gloucester's forces approached Lincoln. Their task, to liberate the castle from King Stephen's siege. While behind Lincoln's walls, troops loyal to Matilda held the castle for the Empress. First, Robert's forces would stage an ambush to prevent enemy reinforcements from joining with King Stephen's army.
Estes commander.
Scouter, you ready to read? Scouters, he saddled up. Understood. We're reading. Scouter, he ready to read? I'll do that. Give me Hestus. It will be done.
Jonas, jag är till Hervigan, Wevilgan, men av armes är Gretel för stor. Men av armes, Wevel förände ute. Men av armes av biden, inte vedanes. Everichan jära. Hesse skjullen vi här. Jonas, jag är till Travel till men av armes av biden. För ett ur ände, men av armes. Send them at mina väckes. It's so as Alia. What be after hästen? It's for feffin häst. What will thou? Hierwe for blood on ball. Send them at mina väckes. Ich obey thine hess.
Cursory saddled, I'll do that. Give me Hestus. Het will be done. Cursory saddled. Scouter, il polwende di Hesta.
Hierwe for blood hessa shouldn't be here. beathyn hest ich du sua þú hendest. Hessa shouldn't be hearing. What will that ich obey thine hess? Ich obey thine hess.
Wider shul ich ga.
What beathyn hesten? Ich sua hessa aliata.
Give me Hestus. Do ende mi dute. Scouter I ready to read. Cursa I saddle. Scouter I ready. Wider shul ich ga. Ridende sua het. Scouter I ready to read. Het wella beodon. Give me Hestus. Ridende sua het.
Jerwe for blood on by hessa shouldn't be hearing. What will thou send them at min awake? Ik kan heldig min stead.
Wider shul ich ga. Ich will do that. Cursa I saddled. Scouter I ready. Cursa I saddled. Scouter I ready. Do ende mi dute. Scouter I ready to read. For wende the hesta.
Robert's men concealed themselves in a sheltered grove and lay in wait for the enemy. Robert defeated the first column of Stephen's reinforcements, but he knew more were on the way.
Sleeping. We habeth behestes. Ich forthet in hess.
With more of Stephen's reinforcements eliminated, Robert was steadily undermining the siege.
Siappa thoppa. Estas nu. Ich sua hessa aliata.
Robert's men decimated King Stephen's reinforcements and were poised to break the siege. Continuing the push towards Lincoln, Robert sent in a large company of reinforcements to aid his vanguard. To further weaken the siege, Robert would need to cut off Stephen's supplies. He targeted the nearby market town.
Tulkes, now what comes next?
Ich habe gefunden, der findet Finanzen gefunden!
Fuse Tulkes, Hestes, Tidwindleth, Vereth, Entendeth Breckus. Nuthan, cometh on.
And Scouters, Zandstupa! Scouters, redet unter!
Fuste Tulkes, Hestes.
Rallying to Matilda's cause, a large group of knights arrived at Lincoln to bolster Robert's army. With the market town in ruins, King Stephen's supplies began to dwindle. Robert received word that Welsh troops under Matilda's banner were en route to join forces with him. But King Stephen had the roads to Lincoln heavily guarded, and the route was not without risk, even for the hardy Welshmen.
Canitas, another son. Let us read it, Canitas. For honest, Mr. Arthur Canitas. Look how you ready, Frekish shall lady ya. Arthur Canitas yar, keepeth good fettle, Canitas.
Making their way to Lincoln, Matilda's Welsh allies were ambushed by the king's soldiers. Robert's men would need to aid the Welsh if they wanted their help in breaking the siege. Joining forces on the road to Lincoln, Matilda's allied troops made for the castle to lift the siege.
Get thee ready for Hestes. It's libe to hear him.
Robert's forces spotted a large detachment of Stephen's soldiers guarding the castle gates. If they hoped to liberate Lincoln, they would need to break the blockade and rout the army. Robert's forces scattered the king's army, leaving the gates to the castle unguarded. Robert's men finally united with Lincoln's garrison. They could now use the castle to strengthen their army. To lift the siege, they needed to destroy the enemy camps surrounding the castle. Matilda's forces struck hard, destroying one of King Stephen's siege camps.
See things to work. See things to work.
King Stephen's army dwindled as Matilda's forces struck down another siege camp.
Freckes hack, nu Hestes. Hestes and on, Boaman.
Ik heb ik van de foe! Na, de foe en verende! Ik stel de foe!
Kiera Hestus.
Harkeneth alla. Over the John. Intended.
The king's army was scattered, and those who didn't fall fled. King Stephen was spotted, shielded by his men. To end the siege, Matilda's forces needed to capture Stephen and rout his army.
Look how you'll be ready, Freckis. Bandit! He's down near me!
Matilda's men closed in and finally captured King Stephen. Matilda's forces had won the battle at Lincoln. But the fight for the crown was not over yet. Victory over King Stephen at Lincoln gave Matilda the upper hand in her fight for the English crown. But in the years that followed, fragile loyalties shifted, and under threat of capture, Matilda was forced to retreat. As her holdings in England came under attack from the king's army, it fell to her son Henry to keep Matilda's claim to the throne alive. Inside the strong stone walls of the castle at Wallingford, Matilda's men held firm against a brutal siege by forces loyal to King Stephen. King Stephen's army had constructed a fortified perimeter outside the castle, trapping Matilda's men inside. However, reinforcements were on the way from Matilda's son Henry. Her forces needed to hold the walls until they arrived.
This is a mickle matter.
Every John, intended. Jonas, Jaretadon.
Readers, he ready for Hestus. Readers, Nana Milche.
Men of armies are beaten. Be off yard to hastes to folk. Get it the swing and
Hästes kommer arvenen. Wailen Marques arvenen. Dresset jag arvenen. Each arve hitter. Shit.
Hoping to claim Wallingford, King Stephen's siege forces launched a renewed attack on the castle.
some work.
Estes uncommand.
Get it the
Henry and Matilda's forces struck out at the besieging army, weakening the enemy's hold on Wallingford's perimeter.
Sergeants awaiting Estes!
Matilda's forces repelled the attack and held the castle. The enemy line wavered as Matilda's forces cut down the besieging army, clearing another section of the blockade.
Everything is active.
Arronger, Readers. Each following Hestes. Nu, Tulkis, set it down. I'll read. Ours commanding!
Chappet uppe. Estes nu.
Attendeth well.
See they to work.
They did that, read the note.
Hoping to crack the mighty stone walls of Wallingford, King Stephen's forces launched another attack.
Get to the ready for Hestes.
Matilda's forces overwhelmed the enemy and cleared the castle's perimeter.
It's better, yeah.
Sergeants awaiting Estes.
Brace at yourself.
Estes uncommand.
Estes en ordbornen.
Defender Hestus. In Hungary, but to was.
This is a victory!
Intended well, Hestus.
Matilda's forces held firm against the attack, cutting down the enemy soldiers. The joint forces of Matilda and Henry had thwarted King Stephen's siege of the strategic castle at Wallingford. After over a decade of conflict, Matilda's claim to the throne was still alive. At Wallingford, in the shadow of the castle, Matilda's faction, commanded by her son Henry, proved it was still willing to fight King Stephen for the crown. But after 15 years of conflict, both sides had had enough. So, they made a deal. Matilda would surrender her claim to the throne on condition that when Stephen died, her eldest living son Henry would succeed him. A year later, he was crowned King Henry II and proceeded to grow the kingdom into the mighty Angevin Empire. But, once again, what the king had spent his life building, his own children were destined to destroy. King Henry II had 4 surviving legitimate sons, and he planned to divide up his kingdom between them. But they fought bitterly for dominance. Against the odds, Henry's youngest son, John, became king. But King John was deeply unpopular. He lost huge swathes of the Angevin Empire gained by his father, then failed to reclaim them in expensive battles. Paid for by taxing his subjects. Eventually, England's barons could take it no more. They forced John to agree to a charter that restricted his power. The Magna Carta. But he went against his word. Furious, they rebelled, inviting Prince Louis of France to invade England. In 1216, Louis sailed to Dover and set his sights on taking this: Dover Castle. Held by forces loyal to King John, it was commanded by Hubert de Burgh. He described the castle as the key to England. He was right. If it fell to the French, so would the kingdom. Asked to invade by the rebel barons, Prince Louis's French army launched an assault on the castle at Dover. Opening a crack in the outer defences, the invading forces charged the castle walls. The garrison at Dover would meet the French with clenched fists and an iron will. Dover could not fall. Commander Hubert de Burgh rallied his men to hold back the French and defend the castle.
Freckers, intendeth no. Each fall away hestes. Hestes. Hestes cometh, Arwen. Hestes and on board. Hestes cometh, Asteriat, Brachen, Schäten! Grites, in the side!
Hestes ankommen.
While the castle's garrison thwarted the first French attack and prepared for a second, a new resistance force was building in the English countryside. A skilled bowman and fierce patriot, known as Willikin of the Weald, began to muster a resistance to the French invasion. Determined to keep the crown in King John's hands, Willikin would rally every available archer to the cause.
Are you ready for Hestes?
Get it to Swinken, toonfolk. Build ending happy to move. He'll have that he building anon. Aye.
Hey, every John, intended.
Aye. Woo, there is no full matter.
Yeah, ready to done some work here. Till then day, that's right to know.
Harkeneth for Hestes! Any Anagandi to pushin'?
Hestes and on, bowmen. Fully end their Hestes.
With his bowmen assembled, Willikin planned to ambush the French siege engines on their way to the enemy camp.
Toolkits! Go to Hestes.
Understood.
Thing. Yare to done some work.
And Celia building thing.
Toonfolk aren't ready.
Hestus on commander. To when they hit. Entendeth well, Hestus. See they to Baron. Seeth the Hestareth? We haven't steadies beyond that. God's sweet could that be made.
This Shula will do it.
This Shula will it made. God's sweet could that be made.
Beoff yarn to Hester's tool folk. This Shusherla's swinker. It will be that.
Building done. Hit looking good.
It's in Pendeus!
See thing to work at.
And Sealy he builded thing.
This Shula will do they mate.
This Shula will do it.
Dresseth thou Arwemen. Upnes bereth Arwemen. Hestus, Beoth Lipoli, on the stirreth.
The tenacity of Hubert de Burgh's loyal soldiers forced Prince Louis and the rebel barons to abandon their siege at Dover. And thanks to the efforts of Willikin's fearless archers, England remained in King John's hands. In the year prior to the defence of Dover, King John's defiance of the Magna Carta had mired England in a rebellion known as the First Barons' War. Across England, barons broke ties with the crown and seized important cities, including Rochester. With his reign under threat, John deployed his forces to retake Rochester and capture the traitors.